Recently, KPMG, a football benchmark analyzing corporation, issued a very important report regarding to the broadcasting revenue to the top 5 soccer leagues in the world, namely English Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, and League One. So I think we would not go into the report in details because we are not any financial program. We are not going into detail to look into how the individual league perform in 2017 and 18 seasons. We just look into the overall performance, but not in details. And most importantly, the broadcasting landscape and the trend of the televised broadcast in the coming seasons, that we can draw some kind of conclusion or some kind of broadcasting estimation in the coming seasons. So it is a common knowledge that English Premier League still in the poor position in terms of the broadcasting revenues. They are far ahead than the other 4 soccer leagues. What is the most exaggerating fact is that even the lowest club in the Premier League, like West Bromwich Albion or Stoke City, who has been relegated last season, generates the much higher broadcasting revenue than the middle teams in the La Liga. For example, the revenue generated from Stoke City, $114 million. Comparing it to Leganés, the middle lower half team in La Liga, only generating around $44 million. Not to mention the more prominent clubs like Real Sociedad and Real Betis, so we're still generating less revenue than the relegated Stoke City or West Bromwich Albion. So this has been the trend for the recent decades. So it came no surprise to me that the English Premier League as a whole generating far more broadcasting revenue than the other teams, except the top 5, like in the La Liga, like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and Sevilla, and also the Bayern Munich and Dortmund in Bundesliga, for example. So I think the trend is going on. It is never going to be stopped in the coming years. The reason is very simple, which lies in the local and the overseas broadcasting marketing shares, and also most importantly, I think the marketing strategy and the extent of the league branch office over the world. So if we look into the matters, first of all we have to split into 2 categories: local broadcasting streams and the overseas broadcasting streams. Before looking into this matter, I would like to tell you one more findings from the reports. Another very staggering fact is that it's a club dependency to the broadcasting revenues. First of all, if we look into the smaller teams amongst the 5 leagues, the smaller team in the English Premier League receiving far more broadcasting revenue than the other teams across the other 4 soccer leagues. With the Crotone, the relegated team in the Serie A last season, receiving only a record low $22 billion. And then how about the dependency percentage? Well, the smaller teams that we mentioned about, across the 5 major soccer leagues, they receive a very high dependency rate when comparing to the top teams like Liverpool, Real Madrid, and Juventus. Those top teams only taking the broadcasting revenues half or even less than half of their total revenue. And for the smaller teams, it counts around 75 to even higher than 90% of the total revenue. So it is quite a major difference between the small and the rich clubs. Of course, it should be a common knowledge that smaller clubs had limited chance for lucrative sponsorship deals and also commercial income because of their less exposure to the international and local markets. The smaller clubs has far less official jobs in the local markets, and also even their jerseys could not be placed in the major sporting companies like Nike and Adidas. And last but not least, they could not participate in international tournaments like Europa League and Champions League. So the broadcasting revenue is a real indicator to their existence and a testimonial to their real financial strength. If they are taking a record low for broadcasting revenues and high dependency rates like the Spanish side EBA, it is not a very good news to their upcoming seasons. Not to mention some of the teams have been relegated to the second tiers. So it is possible to turn the tide of social supremacy to the English Premier League. It is possible for the La Liga and Bundesliga and even Serie A to catch up with the number 1 league in the world. Indeed, other leagues presidents and the individual club owners are making their effort to curb the growing supremacy of the English Premier League. For instance, the La Liga League president Javier Tebas is working on to shrink the financial gap between La Liga and the English Premier League. Well, not only he expects the gap to be closed within 10 years, but also he is connecting the league to the other parts of the world, including in Africa continents and also in Asia continents. In recent years, they established the official branch office across different continents and also making deals with other football associations and the local broadcaster to come up with different kinds of collaborations. On the other hand, the individual clubs like Bayern Munich established their own office in Beijing so as to attract more and more fans, Bundesliga fans in the mainland China to see the match, to join their clubs. So those are the recent strategies from the other major soccer leagues across Europe to catch up with the English Premier Leagues. At least they try to catch up the figures in terms of the overseas televised revenue. But indeed the gap is quite huge. Well, you need to know the EPL dominance on the international media markets is still very significant. They cash in more than 1 billion. Okay, I mean 1 billion European dollars each season. Comparing to the La Liga and Serie A and Bundesliga, but the closest one is La Liga, bringing in around $900 million. Well, I think this is the closest one, but still, some way falling behind the top league in the world. Not to mention Serie A and Bundesliga, they are far more behind, even to the La Liga. So, are there any ways to turn the tides against the dominating force? Could other major soccer leagues in the Europe to do something? I mean both local and overseas broadcasting strategies in order to curb the growing influence of the English Premier League? Well, we are going to look into this major issue in part 2.